Hello and welcome to another episode of Movie Talks. My name is Daniel.
I'm Jared.
And today we have our very first guest appearance. Thank you for joining us, Zach.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Jared.
It's very exciting.
So instead of reviewing the Emoji Movie today, which we all know is a clear cinematic masterpiece.
Perfect film.
Yeah, instead of reviewing that, we're going to actually talk about some good movies today.
Yeah, so for today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look back at some of the classics. What we've done is we have decided 8 genres of movies, and they have to have aired before 2000. And so we each picked our favorite movie from that genre, from that time period, and we're just going to take a closer look at them today.
Alrighty. So starting off, we're going to kick it off with some comedies here. So, I'm not the biggest fan of comedy movies. I don't think there's actually a single comedy in my top 50. I knew you were going to do that. So there's movies like Back to the Future,
Yep.
which, they're funny, but I don't think there's a comedy in my top 50 that can only be categorized as that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So that being said, there are 3 comedies that I really love. Hot Fuzz,
Yep.
The Big Lebowski, and my favorite is Dr. Strangelove.
Okay.
It's a brilliant Cold War satire.
Yeah.
It's directed by Stanley Kubrick. And the fact that my favorite comedy was released in 1964 really supports my opinion that I think the genre has been slowly and steadily been in decline for the last couple of decades. Thankfully, we have people like Edgar Wright around making movies like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, and the recent Baby Driver, which was Jared and I's favorite movie of all time.
Of all time.
But of 2017.
Greatest film ever.
So, I know it may be off-putting to some people that, I'm talking about a movie that was released in the 60s, but I think, especially Dr. Strangelove, Stanley Kubrick was just so ahead of his time when he was making not only this movie, but pretty much every movie he made. And I think it's actually funnier today than it probably was back 53 years ago. So, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. What else do you guys have?
You can go.
Well, coincidentally, I also picked 1964's Dr. Strangelove as my favorite comedy film pre-2000. I think what's interesting about it is how daring it is for the time period. The Cuban Missile Crisis had happened 2 years before the film actually premiered, and then JFK was shot the year before, so it's very much in the heat of the Cold War.
But that's why we brought him on.
Yep. That is why.
For all of your comedy needs, right? I just honestly just want to talk about my favorite lines from the movie. There's the bit where he's in the room and he has to call the Russian ambassador, and he has that 10-minute long conversation. Hello, Dmitri? Yes, the bomb, Dmitri. The bomb. Now I know you're upset. Calm down, Dmitri. You can't get anywhere with these Russians. Or what's his name? George C. Scott, who would later go on to play Patton. He plays the general, and he's running all over the boardroom. And whenever they talk about bringing the Russian ambassador, he freezes up and he's like, but he'll see the big board.
Not just he plays 3 characters in the movie.
Yeah. No, Peter Sellers, yeah.
Oh, Peter Sellers. Yeah. Sorry, got confused. But it was George C. Scott who had that moment where, Stanley Kubrick doesn't do a lot of improv in his movies, but the scene where he trips and falls when he's walking backwards, that was totally unscripted. But they just rolled with it. It's so funny. You can't get moments like that in any movies that are made today.
Yeah. I think my favorite line from the film is actually whenever the British captain is trying to get a hold of the president, and he has to convince that guard to break into the soda machine and get changed. and the guy goes, if you don't get the President of the United States on the phone right now, do you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's such a good film.
It is.
It really is. And I had a suspicion that you two would pick that movie, and so I went a different route, and I picked 1986 Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay.
And now this movie to me, it isn't my favorite comedy per se. I think that would be Back to the Future, even though that does fit into other genres.
Yeah.
But this movie,
Genre transcending.
this movie is so much fun. Like, this movie made you want to be Ferris Bueller, and you wanted to have the day that he had. Man, he just has so much fun in one day, and you think that's what being a teenager is about. You're supposed to just do whatever and just have fun, because it's not going to last forever. It has so many aspects to it. You have the dynamic with Cameron and his father and that cathartic experience with the Ferrari.
Uh-huh.
Jeffrey Jones, who plays the principal, is, oh my gosh, he's a great villain, and it's almost like he's not even trying to be. He's trying to be funny and kind of in the way. But man, that scene where he's talking to Cameron and Ferris on separate lines when they're trying to get his girlfriend out of school.
Best scene in the movie.
Oh my gosh,
So
it's
funny.
so funny. My favorite thing about this movie is how they break the fourth wall. It's very selective, but they do it in a way that makes you attached to Ferris. It's not just thrown in there for comedy. You relate to Ferris in those moments, and it makes him a more valuable character to the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this movie. It is in my top 5 comedies of all time, and I mean, for the time period, it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
I think I actually showed that to my brother. We went on an RV trip, and it was like 12 o'clock in the morning. And I like showed him Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and he's like pounding on the desk, like, "Get away, the principal!" Like,
Yeah.
it's such one of those like movies that you can have like memories of it like that.
Yes, yeah, you definitely remember when you watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also one of those movies that really it left an impact on movies even that are even being made today. You know, like even in Spider-Man: Homecoming,
Yeah.
they actually put a clip of it in the movie when he was doing something that was very similar to what was going on in
And
the
then
scene.
they have those terrible Domino's commercials where that guy from Stranger Things is trying to rip it off. And it's so bad.
Oh my god.
All right, is that it for comedy?
I believe so.
Okay, so our next genre is action.
Action
So
movies.
Daniel, do you want to start us off there?
Yes. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, nothing tops Die Hard.
Thank you.
Okay? Is that what you got to?
well, no.
No,
but I was
Okay.
thinking that
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
was
okay.
saying this.
It is a perfectly structured movie. The characters, particularly John McClane, but also Alan Rickman, who plays a terrific villain. The characters are legendary. The action is visceral, but there's also this fantastic comedic undertone to it. In particular, my favorite part of the movie is the scene when Sergeant Al Powell is exiting Nakatomi Plaza as John McClane hurls a body onto his car. Yeah. And there's that ensuing shootout, which I think is a perfect example of the movie's terrific comedy drama balance, where, you know, when John McClane says, "Welcome to the party, pal," it's it doesn't overshadow the brutality of the action, but it just perfectly complements it, the irony of the situation. Mm-hmm. And it's why I rewatch it so much, like every Christmas.
It is
the best Christmas movie.
It is the best Christmas movie.
Yes, and it's a very rewatchable movie. It doesn't get old.
Yeah.
Even though you know what's going to happen, it's still just so much fun.
Uh-huh. So yeah, that's my favorite. And you said it was...
Well,
you don't have it,
okay.
But...
John McTiernan directed Die Hard, and I'm going to take another one of his great action movies, which is Predator. Predator is, I think, one of the best alien movies ever made. I think second to The Thing and Alien, those are interchangeable for me, but Predator is just cool. It's the jungle setting, it's the fascinating villain and how he picks him off one by one. It's the final showdown with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the mud. It's the first person view of the Predator with the thermal vision. That was incredible. If it bleeds, we can kill it. That's just such a great line. But really, it's the practical effects. The choice to make the Predator a real thing rather than trying to create him digitally makes it hold up, and it's so good, and I'm really looking forward to the new Shane Black version in 2018, which is so exciting to me because Shane Black starred in the original Predator, and so he knows what this movie is. He gets it. So I'm excited to see his new take on it.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Well, for my action flick, I chose 1964's Goldfinger, directed by Guy Hamilton, starring Sean Connery. Now, Goldfinger, to me, is the seminal James Bond film. It's like the best of Sean Connery's classics, I think. Because it has so many of those iconic Bond moments, like the scene where he's about to be cut in half by the laser. It's the first place where he gets the Aston Martin. And it also, sort of puts a lot of those Bond tropes out there, like the Q branch debriefings and the silent henchman, the Bond girl getting killed by the villain. And it also has that really nice balance of James Bond's sort of comedic quips. Like there's the scene, it's failing my head right now, but there's the scene in the very beginning where he throws the toaster in with the guy in the bathtub. He just goes, shocking.
Classic Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to admit I haven't seen it.
You have not seen Goldfinger.
Which is
I have
sad.
the entire James Bond
man.
collection sitting over there, but I have not watched any of them but the Daniel Craig ones.
Goldfinger.
But I will.
Goldfinger's best James Bond.
I watched Dr. No and I thought, okay, there's my Sean Connery, but I guess not. I guess there's much more that I have to explore.
There is a lot more. And I think the best part about it is like the impact that it left on the espionage genre as a whole. Like it led to this big surge in espionage films in the late 60s with like James Coburn and Our Man Flint and Dean Martin in The Silencers. And it's like one of those like genre defining movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it for action?
I believe
I think
so.
so.
All right. So now we're moving on to adventure. Now this category is kind of hard to pin down because adventure movies usually fall into action or comedy or something.
Yeah.
But I think we did a pretty good job of narrowing it down.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so my favorite adventure movie is one that we already talked about in... Oh, yeah, this is something we have to mention. Some of these will be lining up with what we've already talked about in Jared and I's top 10s. Zach obviously won't have that problem. But for the ones that do line up, we're going to be saying like a second favorite or just something in our top 5 that we really love. Mm-hmm. So for this one, Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite. But we've already talked about it, so the next one that I chose is Back to the Future.
really,
Yeah, and now we've actually kind of already talked this one to death too, because spoiler alert, it is Jared's favorite movie of all time. Zach, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Back to the Future if you've seen it.
Oh, I've seen Back to the Future.
Yeah, of course he has.
All of them.
Yeah.
I remember I used to watch, I forget what channel it was on, but they would like run Back to the Future, like the trilogy just continuously. And we'd have AMC Back to the Future Day. That was my favorite part of summer vacation was watching like Back to the Futures 1, 2, and 3 like for 5 hours.
oh yeah.
Oh man. But I love Christopher Lloyd. I love Christopher Lloyd so much in that movie.
Yeah, he
so makes
amazing.
the film.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Actually, so interestingly enough, so I had originally put A New Hope, but that's in my top 10. So what I did was I went to one that wasn't in my top 10 and I picked Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and I'm looking at Zach's right now, and we seem to have a recurring theme here. But, so, yeah, I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark, one of the most iconic characters ever, one of the most iconic soundtracks ever.
Yeah.
It has humor, suspense, action, all bundled up into one. It has so many memorable scenes too. It has the airplane fight with the big. Is he German? I don't know.
So good.
The sword gunfight where with the guy in the turban twirling the sword and Indiana Jones just pulls out the pistol and shoots him. Like that was hilarious.
You know the backstory about that, don't you?
No, what?
He had diarrhea.
Who did?
Harrison Ford.
So that's why he
they
did
had
it?
some
Yeah.
big fight planned out, but he couldn't do it because he had
Oh,
explosive
so he just, like-
diarrhea. So he's just like, can I just shoot him?
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's so funny.
That makes it so much better.
I know, it does.
Oh man, and looking back at this movie, I really forgot how good it was. There's just nothing wrong with it. Every scene adds to the next, and every scene is memorable. You say, hey, remember that? Remember the face melting scene, and people go, oh yeah, that's from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Hey, remember that airplane fight? Oh yeah, that's from Raiders of the Lost Ark. The basket chase with Marion.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That scene is really good, and it's just tucked away in the middle, and you almost forget it's there. But then when it comes back up, you're like, oh, I remember. I love this scene, and that's what the entire movie is.
Just one big trip down nostalgia lane.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I knew one of you was going to take Raiders of the Lost Ark, so I went a different route and chose The Last Crusade.
Yeah, I almost picked that one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is still another Steven Spielberg fic with Harrison Ford. I think because Raiders of the Lost Ark is such an iconic film that Last Crusade often gets overshadowed, but I would almost call it just as good.
Yes.
It's so, like, some of the practical effects, like at the very end with the Grail, and when he picks it up and he drinks from it and he's like decaying. I read about this. So Spielberg wanted the shot done in all in one take, so it wouldn't look like they just applied makeup in between takes. So what they did was, for Julian Glover, who plays Donovan, they have these inflatable pads on his like cheeks and forehead so that his eyes would look like they were seated back. And then they like made these 3 puppets which showed him in like various stages of decay, and they digitally morphed them all together. And then they had him wear this mechanical wig to look like his hair grew out, and it took them like 3 months to take all of this together. But when you see the final product on screen, it's so incredible.
Yeah,
that's
it
great.
sounds like it was worth it.
Yeah. And I think it just like, I think Last Crusade just needs more love in general.
Yeah.
Like the fez-wearing secret society who like attack him in
On
Venice.
the back of the boats. Yeah.
I love that scene because they're like, we are the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword. We have this, and this, and it's just like, oh my god, this is incredible.
It's also really funny too.
It
when
is.
when you get Sean Connery in there and they're in the burning room tied to the chairs. He's like, Dad, what? And they keep turning to the opposite side.
Oh,
so
man.
funny.
Yeah, adventure movies, I'm just now realizing, it really is like an amalgamation of every single genre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The good ones, at least. And
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's the ones that we've picked, at least.
He chose poorly.
All right, I think that wraps it up for adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are moving on to horror.
Ooh,
The
horror
exact
movies.
opposite of adventure.
Okay. So, a lot of these categories... Good man. That's exact. A lot of these categories are close. Yeah, a lot of these are close. Horror, for me, is just no question. It's The Shining.
Oh yeah.
It is The Shining.
The-
You too?
No. Once again, I knew you two were going to pick this, so I went a different route.
Okay.
The
So,
seminal horror film.
I think Alien and The Thing are the only two that come close.
Okay.
Everything else, yeah. I can't think of a horror movie that's more meticulous in its construction than this movie, and that's because it is a Stanley Kubrick movie. Thankfully, when I first saw The Shining a few years back, I didn't know what red rum meant, so
Neither did I when I first saw it.
so that was a really like shocking
Yeah.
It was
moment when you see it
bone-chilling.
for the
Yeah.
first time. It's
like,
yeah,
oh.
yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I think that still holds up as one of the greatest movie moments of all time. And it is a horror movie that it doesn't just scare you when it's on, like just when it's on. It lingers with you, especially because of that chilling closing shot. If you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. The picture,
Yeah.
the photo.
Photo, yeah.
And every time you turn a corner, you wonder, are there two little girls
Oh,
standing
yeah.
there? Like,
yeah.
no matter where I am, I kind of like...
Yeah, that's
Ugh.
that's something I knew. I knew of the Shining girls before I watched the movie. But when you're watching the movie, there's a few sequences of Danny, doing his tricycle thing when they don't show up.
Yes.
And you're just like, when is it
Is
gonna happen?
it this
When's
one? Is it
gonna
this
happen?
one?
Yeah.
And then when they show up, you're like, oh, no,
Yeah.
it's them.
The weird thing about it though is like in the movie itself, they're 8 and 10. They're not even twins, but they look exactly alike.
Uh-huh.
And
They're-
it's
they're
so
Kubrick's daughters.
freaky. Yeah, they're Kubrick's daughters? I didn't even know that. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That makes it even creepier.
One of his
That
daughters
he
is
would
also
do
in
that.
2001.
Well, as you might have guessed from Daniel, I also chose The Shining. I almost went another route and went real old school and did Nosferatu, but I really wanted to geek out about The Shining.
I almost picked Nosferatu. Man.
No, I think one of the strongest pieces of The Shining is its spatial awareness. Because if you look at the Overlook Hotel, it was shot, the exterior shots are shot in Timberline Lodge, which is I think in Colorado. But like the interior is like this amalgamation of all these different sets, and realistically speaking, like none of the Overlook Hotel interiors should be able to fit inside the Timberline Lodge. So like it just feels like this cavernous, never-ending place. Like there's that big ballroom where they have the ballroom scene. Like that shouldn't fit inside the hotel itself, but it's just there. Like there's hallways that shouldn't even be there, doors that shouldn't go to places. And I think that really contributes to this sort of feeling of like being lost that's throughout the film.
Yeah.
Like you just feel like all of it's so cavernous and you can't get anywhere with it.
Like the hedge maze.
The hedge maze. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But of course, we always have to talk about Jack Nicholson's performance.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Man. I think one of the ironies of the movie is he's like in the film he's an author.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's struggling. And I think at the very end when he's talking to Wendy, he says about like how his word is his bond and like he has a contract and all this stuff as he's about to like beat her alive. And then at the very end of the film he like just grunts and growls and he has no words left. I think it's there's one of those little ironies there.
Yeah.
That scene, all work and no play makes children.
Oh, that's so scary.
There's so many amazing moments in this movie.
And he like appears out of nowhere behind Shelley Duvall. And he's just like, Wendy.
So I'm interested. Do you have an explanation as to the ending?
I don't know. I've thought about it several times. For the ending, I think.
Spoilers, of course.
Yeah, spoilers.
it's
Spoilers
been out
if you've
for a
never
long
seen The
time.
Shining.
Yeah,
You filthy cretins, go see The Shining at once. I think, honestly, that the hotel kind of just absorbed him. Like, it's almost like the hotel is this place where time stands still. And, like, all this weirdness happens because there's no barrier of time, so all these dead people come in and out. And I think when Jack died, he just, like, was absorbed into the hotel. And I think that's why he's in that picture. But that's my guess, and it's as good as any other guess.
That's definitely true. No one really,
Yeah.
one really knows. Okay.
I think especially because there's that scene in the bar with Joe Turkel, who plays the bartender.
When he's just talking to
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
talking to himself, and he says he'd give his soul for a glass of beer, and then the bartender just shows up. It's just like, oh no. No.
Oh, jeez. I never even noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Jeez.
It's so
I think you're right.
It's crazy.
I think you're right. All right. Well, I picked Psycho for my horror
Okay,
movie.
nice.
Nice. Classic Hitchcock.
Yep. It's iconic. Everything about it is iconic. The shower scene, of course, but I don't even think that's the scariest scene. I think the scariest scene in this movie is when what's her name? I don't know.
The mother?
Yeah.
Well, no, not Mother,
Oh,
but when
the-
she meets Mother.
Oh, I think
Down
her
in the
name is
basement.
Norma. No. The Marion. No, Marion Crane's the one who got killed. It's her sister, right?
Yeah, it's her
I
sister.
think so. But whenever she goes down in the basement and sees the corpse of the mother, turns
Oh,
around,
yeah. Oh.
screams, music starts playing, and then Norman Bates comes around with the knife. It's just, it's terrifying because that's the aha moment where you realize, oh man, it's been this the entire time, and it all happens so fast, and
Yeah.
the seclusion of the movie, kind of like in The Shining, how
Yeah.
everything's closed off and it's so cavernous inside. This movie is very central in its locations, but yet there's so much going on.
I think that's a running theme with most of the best horror films. It's that it's got a central location that's sort of closed off.
Yeah. Alien.
Alien,
Oh, yeah.
Even the thing.
The Thing.
Yeah, The Thing, Antarctica.
Yeah.
Shining, Psycho.
This was one of the first movies that I think really explored mental disorders in a scary way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we get to see that now, as I'm sure we'll talk about later. But that's the thing that makes Hitchcock's movies so scary, is that they're real. Like with The Birds, he said that was possibly his most terrifying movie yet. And it's so possible, just for a bird to swoop down and start attacking you. But the mental disorders, like, that's a real thing. You see it in Split with M. Night Shyamalan. Like, that's a real disorder, and it's really scary that could actually happen to someone. It's just so realistic.
Yeah. I remember I actually got the chance to see it in in a movie theater because they were doing like this Classic Tuesdays thing at Harkins, and I went and saw it with a friend of mine, and it was her first time seeing it, so it was so good to get that experience of watching someone like realize who Norma Bates is, like on the big screen. It was, if you ever get a chance to see like classic films on screen, I don't know if Harkins still does the Classic Tuesdays thing.
Yeah, they still do.
But they do? Oh yes, because I saw Jaws there too.
Yeah.
Oh, just go do it. Don't think twice.
All right, what do we got next?
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
All right, Daniel.
I feel like Daniel and I are just gonna keep going on about each other.
Yeah, okay. I have a disclaimer for this category, and it's that I'm not picking Star Wars, any Star Wars movie. Obviously, if I did, it would be Empire.
Nope.
Obviously, right?
Nope.
Right, Zach? What do you think?
He's the tiebreaker. Say New Hope.
It would definitely be Empire.
I thought you were going to say Return of the Jedi. I'd have been like, oh, what do we do?
Obviously, it's Phantom Menace.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry, Jared.
yeah, like we were talking about adventure movies, they're literally every genre, and I think that's what Star Wars is, so I didn't really want to categorize it. So, what could I possibly pick other than 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Exactly.
The pinnacle of sci-fi movies. Now, this whole process of picking my favorite movie of every genre has made me realize that Stanley Kubrick could take anything and like any genre and make it the best it had ever been. Because this is the third Stanley Kubrick movie that I've mentioned, and we're only like what?
We're halfway through.
We're halfway through, yeah. So, 2001: A Space Odyssey again it's the best. Like, I don't think anything has come close. You know, there's movies like Blade Runner or The Matrix, which is really more of an action movie, but nothing can top the sheer scope of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It takes place over like thousands of years, and you know, there's so much there that things could be lost so easily with the helm of a lesser director. But Stanley Kubrick is he, you take that first sequence, The Dawn of Man.
Yeah.
And it just seems like at first glance, it's just a bunch of apes just like hobbling around. But it's that whole setup of what the like war basically.
Yeah.
Of like what two groups of people will do to each other to take over and like a pond, if we're using that example. Like
the cut between the bone that they throw up in the air and the spaceship, I remember watching that and I was like, oh my god.
That is how you cut between two time periods.
Oh, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, I did also pick 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Have you guys picked the exact same one for every category?
I hope not.
Well, he picked last
Adventure. Yeah. But yeah. Honestly, there's so much you can talk about with Space Odyssey. The cinematography, the acting, the script, everything is on point in this movie. So I just wanted to talk about interpretations. I want to hear what everyone else's thoughts. Yeah.
Okay. So
I can't even.
This could be an hour-long separate video, but
true.
Basically, the whole thing is about evolution. It's the entire theme of the movie is in that one cut from the bone to the spaceship. Right. Just shows the evolution of time. And are you getting at the last 10 minutes that you want interpretations on? Because that's really where everything...
That's where everything like goes out the window and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah. What are they called? Star babies? Or
Star
something?
Child?
Star Child?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's literally... like when I finished watching it, I was like... I thought I knew, and then I
was pretty sure what this movie was about, but then this happened.
You texted me, and you're like, "What does this all mean?" After you watched it for the first time, I gave a decently detailed explanation as to what I thought. I couldn't do that now. I mean, I could try, but I'm not going to. It would just dissolve into nothing. I mean, you could tackle it if you want.
Yeah, I actually have read some pretty interesting stuff, and I think I have a decent interpretation. It's actually, what I've read, from what I understand, is it's sort of an allegory for Nietzschean philosophy, like thus spake Zarathustra, and which is actually the name of the famous musical piece that's at the beginning of the ba 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 ba. that thing. That's actually the name of the musical piece, and I think that's sort of a clue as to what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because what Nietzsche wrote was he was like, man is like the bridge between the apes and the Ubermensch, which is like the Superman, I guess. And so it's sort of like the transition from ape to man to Ubermensch, I guess, which is the star child.
Yeah.
And so what he wrote in The Birth of Tragedy was he sort of had this idea between chaos and disorder, which he called Apollo and Dionysus. And he said that the apes are, from what I gathered, the apes are sort of like Dionysian, like they're all about chaos and war and all this. It's very disorganized. Mm-hmm. And then when you fast forward 100 years, it's all Apollonian. Like there's Hal, who's like this computer who's very straightforward, to the point. Everything is as is. And all the people are still very like clinical. Like even the most day-to-day human routines, like talking to your children, is like done through this screen.
Yeah.
And it's all very like
Stanley
clinical.
Kubrick's daughter.
Yeah, that's Stanley Kubrick's daughter. And everything is very Apollonian, orderly. And what Dave Bowman does at the end of the film is he travels through that like hour-long acid trip.
Yeah.
And he's sort of regaining, I guess, his Dionysian elements. And so he kind of fast forwards through his whole life and then is rebirthed as the Ubermensch. And that's what I gathered as my interpretation of the film.
Yeah, it's really cool. The sound design on every Kubrick movie is just stellar. But in this one, you talked about that last 10 minutes where he's just like going through these dimensions and changing. It's really cool because you'll hear breathing in the background. Mm-hmm. And whenever that stops, he's changed form.
Yeah.
And it's, just stuff like that just make these movies, Stanley Kubrick's movies, so dense and amazing.
God bless Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
At first, the first time I watched this movie, when he was traveling through all the dimensions, it was going on for so long that I thought the credits were about to roll. I thought the movie was over. Yeah. And then it came back and I was like, oh, nope, that's right.
Yeah.
There's still more that it's just going to turn my brain to mush.
I think that was Kubrick's like first, I think it was his only actually like Oscar that he won himself, right?
Did he win?
I thought he won for special effects in that one. That was the only time that he did it.
We'll look it up.
I think so. Although I can't be 100% certain. I believe that was the only time.
I thought Kubrick never won an Oscar.
I don't think you can do that like 10-minute acid trip sequence without getting an Oscar.
Yeah, really. The effects still hold up today. That's another thing. Because they're all practical.
Yeah, they are all practical.
Even like the planet, it was sketched.
All of the models that they're doing when that classical piece plays
He won.
Visual effects.
Wow. Visual effects, and that was his only Oscar that he won, I think, maybe. Yeah.
Tragedy.
Yep, one Oscar. That's sad.
Wow. That's so sad.
Underappreciated genius in his time.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Everyone.
But now he's now when you mention Stanley Kubrick, film students just go, "Oh my god, my idol."
Do you think he faked the moon landings?
100% yes.
Yeah. He could.
Didn't you see? Yeah. If anyone faked the moon landings, it was Kubrick.
It would be him. Yep. All right. So once again, I knew that you guys were going to pick 2001. So I went with Alien.
Okay.
I just feel bad because you guys just keep picking all these dense movies that are just so complex. Then I'm like, I just want to see Xenomorph.
Yeah.
Alien's a fun movie.
Yeah. It's as soon as you see that egg or the facehugger, you know exactly what it is. I would argue that it's the most well-recognized movie franchise of all time.
Besides
Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite thing about this movie is, of course, the isolation and practical effects, but the synthetics. What's his name? I know his name.
Which one?
The synthetic in the movie.
I don't know.
The guy whose head falls off.
Oh yeah, the robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't
the
remember.
cyborg.
I can't remember.
I forget his. Yeah.
But it's that whole idea that someone can be just right by you and you have no idea. Yeah. Man, this movie was so captivating the first time I saw it. Right. Every scene, I was on the edge of my seat. Oh my goodness, the original chestburster scene with poor John Hurt. He left that movie too soon. He's so good, but you don't know what's going on, and when that thing pops out of his chest, it's terrifying because you realize this is not at all what I signed up for.
You can imagine seeing that in 1979
I know.
in theaters, being like, "What the heck just happened?"
Yeah.
Practical effects. I think every sci-fi movie that we've talked about on this used practical effects, and that's why we love it so much. Yeah. Because no matter what, it will always age well, and it will never be cheesy. That's all I have to say about Alien. I mean, we kind of talked about it in past episodes, but it's so good.
So what do we got next?
Let's see. I think we have mystery/crime.
Ooh.
Okay.
Mystery crime.
Okay. Yeah, so we talked about adventure, how that kind of transcends genres and kind of, Yeah. Okay, so I think here's where lines begin to blur also, because crime is like a subgenre, really, of typically of dramas and thrillers.
Yeah.
Which we'll be talking about later. But it's also my favorite type of film. So that's why we just need to talk about it here. So, The Godfather is the pinnacle of all crime. Of course. Okay, but before we get to that, since we've already talked about that one in our top 10 videos.
Oh, saved it for me.
I will talk about the next best thing, which I haven't talked about, and it is The Usual Suspects.
That's what I put.
Yes.
Watched it last night.
Yes.
Very nice.
Okay.
I haven't... Try not to spoil it because I watched like the first 40-ish minutes. But I was so tired. Or no, I think I was watching it with someone and then they left, so I couldn't finish it. So I'm waiting to finish.
Yep.
Oh, you haven't finished
Oh man,
it?
I haven't finished it.
Okay, so we will not be talking spoilers here.
No spoilers.
All right, so are we gonna tag team this one?
Yeah, we'll tag team this
Do
one.
it.
So one of my favorite actors of all time, Kevin Spacey, is in this movie. Gives an Oscar-winning performance. And he overshadows the already fantastic supporting cast.
Oh my goodness. Gabriel Byrne,
yeah.
Incredible.
And Benicio del Toro is in this movie.
The voice that he does. When I first heard it, I was like, okay, this can't be real. But then, this is just ridiculous. And then as it goes, you just buy into it. You're like, this is just what he's chosen to do. And I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy the ride.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that lineup sequence is really where everyone gets... You've seen the lineup sequence, I'm sure.
I watched the lineup sequence,
so that's where really everyone gets a chance to shine. And there's a story behind that scene too, and it's that it was supposed to be a serious scene. And they'd had so many takes, and Bryan Singer, the director, was getting so frustrated with the actors, but by the end of the day, he just decided to go with the funniest one. And that was the one that's in the movie.
Whenever they start laughing, it's you can't help but just laugh along with them. Even though it's not supposed to be a funny scene, you just embrace it.
Yeah. One of the best twists of all time, of course, which, we're not going to talk about because someone hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But it's not just a good twist. The scene where the twist is revealed is one of the best put together scenes in cinema history.
Because you don't realize the twist. And in some movies, you realize it once it's already happened. You're realizing it with the characters. You're like, oh wait, but what about? And then you're just like, oh no, oh no.
I know. So as a person who just watched it last night, what are your thoughts?
Okay. This movie takes so many turns from where it starts that you just end up in a completely different section, but you're able to trace your way back. It's not so convoluted like a Family Guy episode to where you just have no idea where you started. But
interesting comparison.
Yeah. Usual Suspects is Family Guy. But Kevin Spacey is able to make you sympathize with his character in such a magnificent way, just with his CP, and he gets so emotional in some of the scenes, and you feel bad for him because you kind of see some of the brutality that's been expressed towards him. I do have one issue though, and that's with his name. I think it's a little too on the nose as verbal. Because he's the guy who's just saying everything. Yeah. But I actually haven't seen it probably in a year, but is that his actual name or is that just a nickname? Verbal Kent.
That's his name?
Mm-hmm. Verbal Kent.
It's a good name. I mean, it is, like you said, it's a little too on the nose, but it is a cool sounding name.
And like you said, he does kind of overshadow each of the supporting cast, but each member is so unique in his own way that it's almost a stereotype, but you get attached to each one. Buckley or no Hockley.
Stephen Baldwin.
No. Stephen Baldwin is McManus.
Yeah.
Kevin Pollak. His
Yeah,
name
okay.
is I don't know, but I think he was my favorite just because he's the short, kind of pudgy guy
Right.
who's really mean. He's like, I'll take you on no matter what.
Uh-huh.
And then you get Benicio del Toro, who's just goofy, but he's really focused. It's you can basically take every character in the lineup and say, okay, he's like this person that I know. He's like this person that I know, because they're so universal, but they're so themselves. There's there's no way that you can get any of them confused with each other.
Yeah.
Oh man, this movie was so worth the wait, and I was so glad that I didn't have it spoiled like Fight Club.
Yeah.
Cameron George.
Which I think Fight Club is even superior twist. I mean, Fight Club is just... Oh my gosh, that is so easily the best twist of all time, I think. I'm so sad you had it spoiled for you.
I know, but it was interesting to go back and watch it with the perspective of, okay, that makes sense because he's...
Yeah, at least it has that replay value.
I don't want to spoil it, but yeah.
I have to confess, I've never seen Fight Club.
But do you know?
I know the twist.
Yeah,
I know the
That-
You know the
twist.
twist?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
I didn't know it. I didn't know it when I saw it. And
I
it
think
was
you
amazing.
started the Fight Club awareness.
Yeah,
The
oh, wait,
Fight,
yeah,
Fight Club Awareness Club.
Yeah.
Rule number 1 about Fight Club Awareness Club. You
Watch it.
must not talk about Fight Club Awareness Club.
All right, Zach.
All
What
right.
you got there?
Mystery Crime is, of course, The Godfather. Yes. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and in the best performance of his career, Marlon Brando. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that this isn't Al Pacino's best performance of his career is because he tops himself in Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
Now, there's so much you can talk about with The Godfather. I mean, Marlon Brando's performance, for one, is the most subdued, like, perfect mobster.
Yeah.
Like, he's just fantastic. And Al Pacino, obviously, going from the quote-unquote good son to, like, the head of the family is such a believable transition. Mm-hmm. I felt like it's like film Breaking Bad. Like, you believe the transition the whole way, but you don't realize how you got from point A to point B.
Yeah, right.
It's so incredible. But I think the one thing that I actually appreciate about it the most is both the use of soundtrack and the absence of soundtrack in the film. Because with a lot of films, what you get is you'll use the soundtrack to, like, create tension rather than, like, expedite it. Mm-hmm. And I think what The Godfather did really well was that instead of using sort of, like, one-shot violin notes to, like, create this sort of tense atmosphere,
Dunkirk.
it used the it used, like, the silence around it as a way to create tension in and out of itself. Like, there's the restaurant scene
Yeah,
where he goes
they use
in.
that train. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah, and the wine bottle popping, like, wherever it, like, pops so loudly, and you, like, see Al Pacino just start. And one of the things I noticed about it, actually, is it's very intentional because in the rest of the film, whenever anyone speaks Italian, it's always subtitled, right? But whenever, what's his name, the Turk, Sollozzo, the guy, he's talking to him, there's no subtitles under him, so you can just put in all your focus on Al Pacino's performance. And just watching his eyes, like, go back and forth as you, like, hear the train coming up overhead. It's so tense. And then he gets up and shoots them. And that only then does the soundtrack actually kick in with those trumpets, the burr, 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 burr. And it's such a well-crafted scene. Okay. And I would say it's the best scene in the film.
Yeah.
Unless the baptism sequence came later. The baptism sequence is the best part of the whole film. Uh-huh. I love the baptism sequence.
Is this your favorite movie of all
It
time?
is. No, I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie.
Do you have a favorite?
Yes. Which is actually probably the next one we're going to talk about.
Oh.
So you'll have to watch me geek out about it. I love.
Okay.
If it's what I think it is.
We're done here, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess we should move on.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to Thriller.
Yes.
Okay. I'm kind of eager to get to mine, but I think Zach, do you want to go first? On this
No. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll go. And actually, I know Jared and I have the same one on this one, so we'll just agree here. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
It's 7. 7. Oh my gosh. I feel like I need to say it 7 times.
7.
Daniel, you told me that I needed to watch this movie in our first episode.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. Daniel has never been more right in his entire life. I watched this movie, I think 3 days ago.
Oh man.
I literally have not stopped thinking about it. Everything about it. This movie is for sure in my top 10. It might be my favorite movie of all time. It is so and I feel so bad because this is the darkest movie I've ever seen in my entire life, but I love it so much. I want to watch it every day for the rest of my life, and I know I shouldn't because it's evil and it's, oh my gosh, but it is just so good. Kevin Spacey. Not even Kevin. Okay, Spacey. Kevin Spacey is incredible in this movie, but I think my favorite performance is Morgan Freeman. I think with this performance, along with Shawshank, I didn't realize this, but Morgan Freeman is one of the greatest actors ever.
Yeah, and those are back-to-back years.
It's just because, he has the Morgan Freeman voice. He's God and Bruce Almighty. And,
he's God and Bruce Almighty.
He's so much more than that. The way that he's able to deliver his lines, and he's just a calming presence throughout the movie. Like whenever they're going into the first murder scene for Gluttony, oh my gosh, every murder in this movie
sticks in your head.
It's so great. My favorite one is Sloth. Sloth is...
Dude, that was one of the most nail-biting sequences I've ever seen.
So I was watching this. It was maybe 10:30 at night. I was in my room, and I had the lights off. My door was open. As soon as he, started breathing again, I went up. I was like, nope, paused it, went and shut my door. And I could not watch it with my door open just because I thought he was going to come get me. Can we spoil this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
it's actually 7.
I just thought John Doe was going to come grab me and... this movie, we realize Morgan Freeman says this isn't gonna stop. It's long and hard is the way that leads to whatever. But once he identifies that these are the 7 deadly sins, you realize, okay, there are gonna be 7 of these. It's inevitable, and so you're just held in suspense throughout the entire movie, waiting for the next killing because you know there's no way you can stop it. And I think that's what makes this movie so good is that it's inevitable. You know that you just have to wait for it to happen.
And part of it is so Kevin Spacey is just such a brilliant villain, not just in the sense that he's a good antagonist for the main characters, but his plans.
Yes.
And so like Jared said, you hear, we figured out it's the 7 deadly sins, 2 deaths in or something.
Mm-hmm. After gluttony.
And so the other 5. But you're just waiting in anticipation how he's gonna carry it out.
And you're wondering which one's next because you're trying to balance them all in your head because they write them on the chalkboard. You're like, wait, okay, they're in a certain order. Is that how it's gonna happen in the movie? But then it gets flipped on you, and you almost want the next murder to happen because you're just so interested and to see. I feel so bad talking this way, but you do.
I actively root for the killing of other people.
This movie is just...
Flawless.
It's just so good. Kevin Spacey's motivation, I think, is definitely twisted, but it's so interesting to almost cleanse the earth of the sins and to draw people's attentions to them so that they can almost purify themselves. It's something you could do from behind a pulpit, but he decides to do it in actively. The way that he does. Yeah. David Fincher. This is just another... David Fincher is like the Thanos of directing. He just has this Infinity Gauntlet right here. He has Social Network, Fight Club, Zodiac, and then, oh my gosh.
Oh, Zodiac. I love Zodiac so much.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with this movie. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Every scene just captured my attention. The music by Howard Shore.
Oh.
The way it builds, and the last scene, the theme for Wrath. Which, first of all, what a genius move to have the last 2 murders involve Kevin Spacey and Mills.
And Brad Pitt.
I had always heard, what's in the box? And the entire movie, I was just, what's in the box? And then as soon as Morgan Freeman grabbed the box, I was like, wait, I know what this is.
This is the box.
It's literally, no, not even that, oh, that's the box. I just knew what was in it. And, I didn't have it spoiled. Everything had just led up to it so perfectly to where I was like, yep, that's exactly where it is heading. Heading, literally. Morgan Freeman running back to Mills with the music just blaring, trying to get him to put down the gun. It's so suspenseful. Just
to touch on David Fincher's brilliance as a director, in that last scene, David Fincher's often talked about how he hates handheld shots. He's all about omniscient camera movements and tripods, stable shots. But in that sequence, he chooses to use handheld cam when the focus is on Mills and Morgan Freeman's character, but it's steady cam whenever it's showing Kevin Spacey to show who's in control.
Yeah. His composure. Because Somerset's just saying, if you kill him, he wins. And it is just brilliant. Was this based on a book? I don't think it was.
I don't think it was.
I don't recall there being a 7 book.
No, or like not even just based on something, because in the opening credits I didn't see anything about that. But this is some of the most brilliant writing I have ever just seen come to life on screen. Everything about it just works together and complements each other in such a way that each scene just gains more and more suspense until the climax, and you're just left silent at the end of it. You're just... I can't... This movie is just so good.
I know. I remember pacing just back and forth around the room after I saw it for the first time. Just like, oh my gosh. It's amazing.
I wanted to just rewind it and start it again as soon as it was over. Just because not a single part of this movie is boring.
I know.
This movie's so good.
So good. Don't you wish we could redo the top 10 videos?
Yes, yes. We would have an hour alone just for 7.
Oh, man. Well, while I do enjoy 7, my favorite thriller of all time, the best thriller, my favorite film, is The Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
The Silence of the Lambs is so good. It's directed by Jonathan Demme with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins, who gives the single, greatest thing ever put to screen.
It doesn't even star Anthony Hopkins. It stars Hannibal Lecter.
It stars Hannibal Lecter, yeah. Oh my god.
The way that he stands.
Yeah. That's actually... Because I remember you saying something about how you enjoyed exposition. I think the first 15 minutes of this film is the greatest bit of exposition almost ever put to film, because you start where she gets called into Jack Glenn's office, I think. Crawford, yeah. And she goes up and he tells her she's going to interview this person. He goes, who am I going to interview? The psychiatrist, Hannibal Lecter. And you just hear her whisper, Hannibal the cannibal. And immediately you know this guy's oh. And you have this buildup of Anthony Hopkins' character. And you sort of don't let him get into your head, and it immediately switches to the psychiatric building. And they're going down this labyrinth almost. They just go down stairs after stairs through these doors after doors. And they're all very traditional jail doors, I noticed. Because I have another thing about this too. Because they go through all these traditional jail doors, and you just have him talking about how don't get near the glass, don't touch the glass, hand him nothing but soft paper, no pencils or pens, don't accept anything he gives you. And all those rules are broken throughout the entire film. And whenever she finally gets into the hallway, you're just creeping forward. And you hear all the other inmates rattling. But even before that, I think, where he shows her the picture, and he's his pulse never got above 85, even when he ate her tongue. And it's just so creepy, because you have that red light on them from above. And when she finally gets to him, it's this complete subversion of expectations. Because you expect this guy to be climbing off the walls and chomping at the bit. And it's just this polite English gentleman hello.
And the colors are very soothing.
Yeah.
It's kind of grays and blues.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to talk about the movie's use of close-ups. Because
yes,
it's mostly with faces and especially Hannibal Lecter, but it just creates this literal closeness and this you're trapped and he's got you, and it's incessant throughout the whole movie, but it's interesting because the first shot where you see Hannibal Lecter is from a distance. Yeah, it kind of pans around the corner and he's just standing there.
Oh man!
So it's so scary.
It is. I think one of the things I actually noticed, like I said, with there's all these traditional, very barred doors that they walk through, and whenever they finally reach Lecter, it's different. It's all glass, right? And it reminded me almost of Dante's Inferno. How you go through all the traditional fire and brimstone, but then when you finally get to Satan himself, it's he's trapped in ice, and it was just oh.
I didn't realize that. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I I had a suspicion that you were going to pick this movie, so I watched it for the first time last night.
Yes!
Jared's been
Yes,
watching a lot
Jared.
of serial killer thrillers.
Oh my god.
And this was one I knew. I just got up before I started and just calmly shut my door, jumped into my bed, and as soon as it started, I saw her running through the woods. I was like, I know she's just on a jog. This shouldn't be scary, but it is.
Oh my gosh.
Just because you know going into it that this is one of the scariest characters ever on screen, and just you feel like he's manipulating you in your head.
Yeah.
It's like Daniel said with the close-ups. You feel like you're right up next to the glass, which you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man.
And we're talking about tense scenes with The Godfather earlier.
Yeah.
There's two that I need to mention. Two of the best scenes
Yeah.
of all time. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Hannibal Lecter's escape scene.
Oh man.
Don't give him a pen.
Yeah. Just another minute, please. And the pen like comes out of his mouth, and you're like, no.
Yeah,
Not right now.
Okay, but the most tense I've ever felt watching a movie is in the blackout scene.
Yes. Yes.
Literally, that was the most
Ted
tense
Levine is
I've
so
ever
underrated
been.
in this film as Buffalo Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, he gives such an amazing performance. He's so creepy.
I was going to say, I was almost more scared by him than I was by Hannibal.
Yeah.
Just because you know that Hannibal, I'm not going to say that, but Buffalo Bill, you feel like he is just almost crazy enough to... Hannibal's not as impulsive, that's what I'm trying to say. But you feel like Buffalo Bill is, and you feel like he is just going to, at any moment, he can just snap.
Yeah.
And the well scene, whenever you come
scene.
up to the well and you see him poke his head over, you put the lotion in the basket.
Skid or else it gets the hose again.
It's so scary because with Hannibal you feel like you can talk to him and kind of not reason with him just because he's so much smarter than you and he'll get inside your head. But with Buffalo Bill, you have to realize that there is no way you can reason with this man. He is totally insane.
He's unstable. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the end of that scene where he's almost crying, like, put the lotion in the basket.
Yeah.
I think, like, one of my favorite things besides the film is actually the heroine. Because I don't know about you guys, but in my house, we love and appreciate well-written female characters. Mm-hmm. And Clarice Starling is the best, like, female, like, hero of all time. I love Jodie Foster in this film. Because, like, you know that she's, like, a woman in a man's world, but it's not, like, beat over your head with a stick. Like, there's the one sequence, and I think it, like, says it all without having to say anything, where she, like, gets in the elevator to, like, go up to Crawford's office, and behind him it's, like, 10 guys, and it's just her. And, like, you immediately know. And the way that the film ends, it's, like, so subtle. Like, she literally kills a guy who, like, uses women for their bodies. Like, in the most literal sense possible. But it's, like, so subtly in there. And it's just so, so wonderful. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. And not to count out Brooke Smith's character who plays Catherine, the abducted girl. Yeah. She, like, whenever she throws the bone up over the well, she's like, Precious, come here, you little... Don't you make me hurt your dog. Oh, man.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. I knew that she wasn't Southern, but her accent was still, it was really good.
Yeah.
And it was, us being in Texas, you wonder, do I sound like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the way that she's able to portray on screen her mental breakdowns once she opens the door for Hannibal to get inside her head.
Right.
It's the title.
Oh man, way the title unfolds.
Yes. That
So
whole sequence where
interesting.
she's telling him the story about the farm and you hear the screaming of the lambs, you're like, okay, wait. It's almost the title, but it's not. And then Hannibal starts talking about it, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what this movie's about.
Man.
It's just
Oh, how can we forget the ending sequence when he's in like the South American
it's like Cuba or
island.
something, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he just has her on the phone and he's like, I'm having an old friend for dinner.
It's like the perfect way
It's
to end that
so
movie.
wonderful.
Because that's the first time you see him in,
Like-
I think, at least 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
That's just the perfect way to just say, oh yeah, remember him?
Yeah, remember that guy?
He was in this movie too, and he's not done.
Yeah.
It's just...
Oh man.
It's so good. They both won Oscars for this.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
this was one of the only films to win like the big 5 Oscars.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Cuckoo's Nest and
Cuckoo's Nest.
and It Happened One Night. Was
Yeah,
the other one.
and It Happened One Night.
Yeah.
Man,
That's
I love
such a good
Silence of the
choice.
Lambs.
Such a good choice.
Favorite film.
That's a good one.
I feel like
Yeah.
we should have ended with this category.
Yeah, that's okay.
We got one more. We got
Yeah.
one
One
more.
more.
All right. Our
Hopefully
last
it
one.
doesn't. Hopefully the steam. Hopefully we
Yeah.
remain. You know.
So
hyped.
the last genre is drama, which is probably the most
Don't look. I'll
vague
surprise
of
you for this
all.
one.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, this is probably the broadest genre.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many dramas, and for me, of course, it's The Shawshank Redemption. That's my favorite movie of all time.
I
But
should have guessed that.
yeah, but obviously,
I was like, why would it be anything else?
yeah. But since I've already talked about that, and we mentioned it earlier, I'm choosing Zodiac.
When did that come out?
2007. Oh
Daniel!
no, I'm breaking
It's
the rules.
pre-2000s.
Oh.
It
It feels like a classic.
We made it an hour.
It's such a classic.
All right, quick,
All
on
right,
the
well,
fly, come up with one.
someone else go. Someone else go.
Okay.
I can't-
Okay.
Let me
All right.
go.
While Daniel, his tardiness and refusal to follow the rules will leave him to himself, you and I will
Just
discuss
close them out.
Schindler's List.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Oh.
I've been. This is one of the movies that I feel like I just need to be mentally prepared for.
Yeah.
You know what?
Oh yeah.
I was gonna pick this one, but I thought it would be too depressing
Yeah.
to talk about.
I honestly couldn't think of any other like dramas that I really like that I didn't already like fit into another category. So I just chose Schindler's List because of the monumental importance of the film.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try not to make it too depressing
It finally made it up.
because
There we go.
if you don't know, the film's shot in black and white, but it came out in 1993, and it stars Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes and Ben Kingsley, and I think one of Spielberg's most impressive parts of this film is his use of color. Like, it's all black and white except for 2 sequences. And the first one's at the very beginning with the candles that they light. There's like this Jewish family and they're lighting candles for their Shabbat, which is, I think that's the day of rest. Or maybe not. I'm not. Don't look at me for like Jewish traditions. But they're lighting their candles for the Shabbat, and as they like light them, the color like slowly seeps out. And it's like that really foreboding. And another one is when they start liquidating the ghettos and they're like taking all the Jews out to be put in concentration camps. Like Liam Neeson's character Schindler, he's like on top of the hill and he's like looking down at all this like horrible stuff that's happening, and he sees this one girl in the red coat. And I don't want to spoil it for you because it's such a heartbreaking moment. But like when he sees her again, I cried. I've cried in 3 films total, and they are Dear Zachary, Elephant Man, and Schindler's List.
Elephant Man.
I bawled during Schindler's List. I am not afraid to say that ending scene had me crying. But one of the less depressing but more terrifying parts is Ralph Fiennes as Amon Goat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read about this. They actually had to tone his character down
Really?
because like the real life Amon Goat was such a terrible person, like such a horrifyingly evil person, that they didn't think that people would actually believe it. Like Spielberg specifically said, we need to tone this person down because people will not believe that Nazis were this evil.
I actually think Ray Fiennes is better than Liam Neeson. They're both fantastic.
Yeah.
But
I think Ray Fiennes definitely delivers a very, very good performance in Schindler's List. Like, there's that scene where they're talking about, I think it's where the Jews are about to be transferred to Auschwitz from wherever they've been held for the majority of the film. And Liam Neeson is trying to talk him out of it. Mm-hmm. And he says, they're worth more to me than you. And he goes, but what's one worth to you? Mm-hmm. And it's just like, no, stop being creepy. And just let him have all of the Jewish people work in his factory, please. But yeah, Schindler's List, it's a tearjerker. Have a box of tissues beside you when you watch it.
Yeah, I want to watch it, but at the same time I don't, because
Yeah.
I know that it's just gonna stick with me.
It's one of those films that you have to watch, but you're under like no obligation to like ever touch that film again after you're done.
right.
All right, Daniel, do you have one picked, or do I need to go?
I think I might have one picked, but you go ahead for now.
Okay.
I gotta make my.
I'm going with 12 Angry Men.
Mm.
This
Okay,
movie
yeah. That's what I was gonna pick.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you gonna stick with that, or are you gonna go for a different one?
I'll stick with it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because that's pretty much far and away.
So
I have never seen 12 Angry Men, but
Really?
I know I
Never
need
seen
to.
12 Angry Men?
really,
I know I need
Oh.
to, though. I know I need to.
I feel like
I
it'd
w-
be right up your alley.
I feel like it. I've heard that.
Yeah. So this movie is probably number 11 on my list. It just missed my top 10. In my opinion, this is a perfect movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The singular setting in this movie, you never leave the jury room.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because you feel like you're the 13th member of the jury, but because you never get to leave and you're hearing the conversation, but you never get to say anything. And I think what's so interesting in this movie is that we side with Henry Fonda in the beginning, even though we don't really have a good reason to, because they're going around the room and they're saying guilty, not guilty, guilty, not guilty, and we have no reason at that point to say not guilty, but in the back of our heads we're thinking, well, maybe this is too soon. And so you feel like you're with Henry Fonda in the room against the other 11 jurors fighting for this boy's verdict of not guilty, but you can't do anything about it, which is so interesting because you're in there, but you're not. And it just reminds you that you're watching a movie. This movie, it talks about the value of life and how you need to be thorough in everything that you do, because one mistake and it could cost someone's life. It says how you need to set aside all bias and personal matters when just looking at something that requires complete, not subjectivity, objectivity. I don't. This movie, it's so simple, but it's so complex when it goes into the workings of how people deal with trauma and how people are so easily influenced by other people.
Right.
But
yeah.
Yeah, you talk about
Yeah.
this.
As simple as it is, like based on setting and even characters, I suppose, because every character is really like kind of like an archetype in the movie, but it works so well because the dialogue is so well written.
Yes.
Because it is a movie that relies solely on the dialogue and the characters' interactions, and it's as the film goes along, I guess I actually shouldn't spoil because Zach hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, but actually, are we done with 12 Angry Men? I might actually just kind of mention.
Yeah, pick a different one.
Okay. I'm gonna pick Magnolia.
Okay.
Which Jared and I were actually just kind of talking about it before we started this. So this is a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, who's one of the best directors working today. He did There Will Be Blood, Punch Drunk Love, The Master, Inherent Vice. I love all those movies. But this is my favorite of his. And obviously I couldn't pick There Will Be Blood anyways because that also came out in 2007. But this is probably one of the best edited films I've ever seen. It's just over 3 hours long, but it's one of those movies, kind of like how I feel about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where it doesn't feel like 3 hours. It feels like 2 hours, or not even, because it just flows so well. There's a lot of characters in this movie, and it kind of jumps around because of that. But it's like Pulp Fiction, kind of, where the storylines intersect and intertwine in ways that are so interesting and fascinating that the ending... Well, the ending of this movie is quite jarring. Have you seen it?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's quite shocking. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think the ending is one of the most beautiful moments in cinema history. Obviously no one can agree with me here because they haven't seen it, but if you
it's great.
yeah, but I think you should definitely check out this movie if you haven't. Again, don't let the runtime scare you away. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's the last of our genres.
All right.
That was good. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that was fun.
The thriller genre was
thriller.
That was our best one.
That was best.
We got really excited.
I know.
But the thing is, there are so many good movies out there that this was almost impossible to narrow it down, except for the one that you just know in your gut. Like, that's it. But
2001: A Space Odyssey.
when you just take into consideration all the great movies that have been made, just looking around your room at all these posters, you're like, oh, that could have been in there, I guess. But it just shows that there's just people are so smart, and they just know what's gonna work. And people have said that film is definitely declining, and when you look at all the movies that were made in the past, you're just like, man, those just haven't been equaled. But then you get the Edgar Wrights and the Damien Chazelles.
Yeah.
And the past is slightly better than the present, but there's still hope because the next Stanley Kubrick could be right around the corner.
Yeah, right.
And it's
Denis Villeneuve. I think
Blade Runner.
I think he's the new Stanley Kubrick. So maybe we'll have to do another one of these where we talk about post-2000 movies, so I can talk about Zodiac.
Yeah.
But for now,
Oh, man.
I think that's all we have.
Yeah, looking at the past gives hope for the future.
It does.
Well, thank you for having me, gents.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us for this episode.
All right.
Once again, I'm Jared.
And I'm Daniel.
And this is Zach.
And
Hi.
that's Zach.
And
That's
we
me.
will see you next time. Thanks for watching.